Is platform work gender neutral, according to your research?
Platform work is not gender neutral. Absolutely not. I think what we see is that what is available in the traditional labor market, I think the inequities that exist are transported onto the platform. And it is not surprising that happens, because there are a number of reasons why this happens. Number one is, there's this notion that exists that technology will make things neutral. That does not really happen, because you have humans behind that technology. So there is a bias that is already ingrained that makes it very difficult for you to actually not have to have any sort of a neutrality. The second thing that we have seen is that the occupational segregation that you see in the traditional labor market gets again transported onto the platforms. So you very clearly see that software and IT related tasks are largely male dominated, and these are the better paid tasks. And you find that women are much more into data entry or writing or clerical tasks, which do not really pay very well. So you see very clearly that the nature of tasks that both men and women take, that leads to very clear wage disparities and also segregation of tasks. I think the added to that, I would like to say that though you use technology, there is a preference, and this is something we have seen from our surveys very clearly coming out, that the minute a client identifies that a particular worker is a woman, he straight away discriminates and says that, well, a woman will not be able to do this job and he would prefer a man. So, as long as we have those biases, human biases built in, I don't think technology per se can come and make things neutral. So much of what exists in the traditional labor market actually gets transported very clearly there.
That didn't work. What could work? How would we go about solving this if you have, policy remedies or directions of attention to share with us?
I think it is, even if you look at online labor platforms, it is very, very difficult at times to prove the kind of a discriminatory treatment that exists, because you do not have access to the design of the app platforms. At the same time, you do not have access to the kind of algorithms that are actually used in that process. So, what would be very important for us would be to look at the design and the development of the platform algorithms very closely, and to ensure that this design is actually done by humans and that they do not exacerbate already existing structural biases. Again, when you talk about humans, it could be, again, whether it is men or women, right? And much of this programming is done by men. So there are these inherent biases that are there. So can we think about having more women programmers who are actually aware of many of these issues, who then try to go about seeing that these discriminatory factors do not come in? Now, what happens, and I think this is a very important point to make, when programmers are given a task, they are given a task with a very clear notion that it has to be efficiency and not equality. And I think if we can change where we focus our attention, what the outcome should be, I think that would be a huge difference that we can make. So that's going beyond the kind of, discriminatory rights that have been already present in many of the jurisdictions that are part of the labor rights. So, this would help in ensuring for us bringing some sort of a neutrality as far as gender is concerned.
Okay. That brings us to the next question or issue, which is informality of work. Taking a broader perspective, for many, for instance, the dominant debate about the existence of an employment relationship or lack thereof in terms of people working as independent subcontractors, etc. But if one takes a broader global look, there is an added dimension to all of this, where the matchmaking includes people in informal work. So maybe you can take a minute to explain why this is an issue to begin with, and how it should feature more prominently in discussions on the future of non-diverse forms of work.
This is a very important question. And I think the way the discussion goes on with regard to the platforms is that there is a formalization of work that is happening, and largely because you use technology. And the very notion that you use technology makes people think that work is getting formalized. But it seems to be the reverse, especially when you're looking at developing countries, where you have a number of occupations where platforms have come in, whether you're talking about taxi, delivery, domestic workers, care workers, beauty workers. These are all largely in the domain of informality or informal sector, as we call it. So, you are getting, and many of these workers are either self-employed, or if there are salaried workers, they do sometimes have contracts and sometimes they do not have any contracts, but there is an employer-employee relationship that exists with that kind of a wage employment. Now, what happens with the entry of the platforms is that all of these workers are either classified as self-employed or as independent contractors or as partners. And they are told that it is all on an equal basis, that this is entrepreneurship. But at the end of the day, all of these workers who had the freedom, flexibility, autonomy to decide when they want to work, what price they want to charge, is all gone away, because this technology, and within that technology, the algorithm determines whether you will have access to work or not, how much you're going to be paid, whether you're going to be paid or not. And, it also determines when you can work sometimes. Because if you do cancel work, there are repercussions to it. You do not get work, or you can be deactivated. So the technology, which can be actually very effectively used to formalize workers, because you can give them labor protection and social protection and other forms of protection, is actually used to precarize workers in a way that makes the situation even more vulnerable.